Fall of Jericho begins with divine instruction. After Moses' death, Joshua assumed leadership of the Israelites, charged with leading them into the Promised Land. As the Israelites camped near the Jordan River, they faced a significant challenge. The fortified city of Jericho stood directly in their path. Jericho was renowned for its impenetrable walls, a symbol of Canaanite strength. Conquering it was not just a military necessity but also a spiritual milestone, demonstrating God's power and faithfulness to his people. God spoke to Joshua, assuring him of victory even before the battle began. "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men," he declared. However, the strategy God outlined was unconventional. Instead of a traditional siege involving weapons and warfare, God commanded the Israelites to engage in a ceremonial procession. This would showcase that the victory was not by human might but by divine intervention. Joshua, a leader known for his unwavering faith, conveyed God's instructions to the people. The plan required total obedience and coordination. The priests were to carry the Ark of the Covenant, symbolizing God's presence, at the heart of the procession. 7 priests would blow trumpets made of ram's horns, while the armed men marched ahead, and the rest of the Israelites followed in silence. This peculiar strategy demanded faith, as it defied conventional military logic. As preparations began, the Israelites consecrated themselves, recognizing the spiritual significance of the mission. The ark was carefully prepared, and the priests readied their trumpets. Joshua's commands were clear. "Do not shout. Do not even say a word until the day I tell you to shout. Then shout." This silence symbolized trust in God's timing and power, a stark contrast to the noise and chaos typical of battle. The people of Jericho watched from behind their walls, bewildered by the spectacle unfolding below. Their city was tightly shut, and they likely expected a direct assault. Instead, they witnessed a silent procession encircling their city, day after day. Though perplexed, they remained vigilant, bracing for the unexpected. Meanwhile, the Israelites' faith was tested with each march. Would the walls fall as God promised, or were they risking their lives in vain? This phase of preparation highlights key themes of faith, obedience, and divine sovereignty. The Israelites' willingness to follow God's peculiar plan underscored their trust in him. Joshua's leadership, rooted in his relationship with God, inspired confidence and unity among the people. Every detail of the preparation reflected the sacredness of the mission, setting the stage for a miraculous victory. At dawn on the first day, the Israelites began their march around Jericho. The procession moved in a precise order. Armed soldiers led the way, followed by 7 priests blowing trumpets, with the Ark of the Covenant carried by more priests in the center. The rest of the people followed in silence. The atmosphere was solemn, with only the sound of the trumpets echoing through the air. This procession, carried out with reverence and discipline, reflected the Israelites' reliance on God. The inhabitants of Jericho observed from their walls, confused and likely unnerved by this strange ritual. They expected an assault with weapons, but instead, they saw a silent march accompanied by trumpets. The Israelites completed one circuit around the city and then returned to their camp. This routine was repeated for 6 days, with the same unwavering precision. For the people of Jericho, the repeated march must have been disconcerting, as it defied all conventional warfare tactics. For the Israelites, the daily march was an act of faith. Each day that passed without visible results tested their trust in God's promise. The priests blowing the trumpets served as a constant reminder of God's presence and his assurance of victory. The Ark of the Covenant, carried at the heart of the procession, symbolized that this was not merely a military endeavor but a divine mission. The silence of the people was particularly significant. In a culture where battle cries and war chants were common, the lack of shouting or noise demonstrated discipline and submission to God's command. The silence also emphasized the contrast between human effort and divine power. This was not a conquest achieved by Israelite strength, but a victory orchestrated by God. As the days passed, the anticipation grew. Would God fulfill his promise? The people's faith was tested as they marched without any visible signs of progress. Yet, They persisted, trusting in Joshua's leadership and God's word. The priests continued to blow their trumpets, their sound a proclamation of God's authority over Jericho. This phase of the story underscores the themes of perseverance and trust. The Israelites' daily march, carried out in obedience to God's instructions, demonstrated their unwavering faith. It also highlighted the stark difference between human expectations and divine plans. By choosing a strategy that defied logic, God reinforced the lesson that his ways are higher than human ways. On the seventh day, the Israelites rose early, ready for what would be a pivotal moment in their history. Unlike the previous 6 days, they were instructed to march around the city 7 times. This final march marked the culmination of their faith and obedience. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as the people followed the ark, their silence a testament to their trust in God's plan. As they completed the 7th circuit, Joshua gave the long-awaited command, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city." The silence of the preceding days was broken by a mighty roar from the Israelites. The priests blew their trumpets with renewed vigor, and the people's shout echoed across the plains. In that instant, the walls of Jericho collapsed, crumbling into rubble. The impregnable fortress that had loomed over them for so long lay in ruins, a testament to God's power. The Israelites rushed into the city, taking it as God had commanded. Every living thing in Jericho was destroyed, as the city was placed under Herem, or divine ban, dedicating it entirely to God. Only Rahab and her family were spared, as promised by the spies she had sheltered. This act of mercy highlighted God's faithfulness and the reward for Rahab's courage and faith. The fall of Jericho was more than a military victory. It was a spiritual triumph. The unusual strategy and miraculous outcome demonstrated that God's power was greater than any human force. It reinforced the Israelites' understanding of their covenant relationship with God, emphasizing the importance of obedience and faith. The Israelites' victory over Jericho marked the beginning of their conquest of the Promised Land. The city's wealth, including gold, silver, and valuable items, was dedicated to the Lord's treasury, signifying that the victory belonged to him. This act of consecration underscored the principle that the Israelites' success was not their own but a gift from God. Rahab's deliverance was a powerful symbol of God's mercy. Her faith in the God of Israel had set her apart from the rest of Jericho, and her inclusion among the Israelites highlighted God's willingness to save those who trust in him. Rahab's story would later become part of the lineage of Jesus, further emphasizing the far-reaching impact of her faith. The fall of Jericho also served as a warning to the surrounding nations. The miraculous nature of the victory demonstrated that the God of Israel was not like the gods of Canaan. He was a God of justice and power, capable of delivering his people and fulfilling his promises. The story of Jericho is rich with symbolism and lessons. It underscores the central theme of faith, trusting in God even when his plans seem illogical or impossible. The Israelites' obedience to God's instructions, despite the absence of immediate results, exemplifies the importance of perseverance in faith. Jericho's destruction symbolizes God's judgment against sin and rebellion. The city's walls, once a source of pride and security, became a testament to the futility of opposing God. Yet, within this judgment there was mercy. Rahab's salvation highlights God's willingness to redeem those who turn to him, regardless of their past. The fall of Jericho also reminds believers of God's faithfulness. Just as he fulfilled his promise to give the Israelites the land, he remains faithful to his promises today. The story calls believers to trust in God's power and timing, recognizing that his ways are higher than human understanding. Through the fall of Jericho, God demonstrated that victory comes not through human strength but through faith and obedience. The story continues to inspire and challenge readers to walk in trust, confident that God is able to accomplish what he has promised.